Is there scientific and logical evidence for the existence of God? Science has concluded, or the general consensus amongst astrophysicists and scientists in that area, is that the universe did have a beginning, regardless of what theory of the origin of the universe you care to hold, multiverse, oscillating universe, or a one-shot Big Bang. The common ground for all of them is that the cosmologists have generally agreed that there has to be a beginning to the origin of physical reality, to the origin of nature itself. So let's define nature as everything that has to do with physical reality, including space-time, matter and energy, and the laws of physics. So that creates an enormous problem for an atheist, because the next question is, well, what caused nature to come into existence? Well, one of the things that we know for sure is that nature, you cannot assume the existence of natural processes in order to explain how nature came into existence. That would be a circular argument. You're already assuming the existence of nature to explain how nature came into existence. It would be like a woman giving birth to her own self. It's logically impossible. So that leads us to a very interesting conclusion with massive philosophical implications, and that is this: the origin of nature cannot be natural. It must be non-natural, or we have a word for that, supernatural. So the proposition is like this: the origin of nature must be either natural or supernatural. Those are the only two options. But the origin of nature cannot be natural, therefore logic dictates that the origin of nature must be supernatural. That is, whatever it was that caused nature to come into existence logically has to be supernatural. Now you might ask, well then what caused that supernatural entity to come into existence? But there's a problem with the question, and it has to do with time itself. Time is a property of this universe, and time itself had a beginning. And so whatever it was that caused nature to come into existence also caused time to come into existence. And in order to avoid the circular fallacy, the supernatural origin of the universe cannot itself be dependent upon time if it's going to bring time into existence. That would be another circular fallacy. So to summarize that aspect of things, the cause of time must be either timeless or dependent upon time. But the cause of time cannot be dependent upon time. That would be a circular fallacy. So that it only leaves the other option, that the cause of nature, this supernatural cause of nature, must be timeless and eternal. And to ask, well then what caused that, is assuming there was a time when that timeless being did not exist, and then something caused it and now it exists. But you're smuggling time back in there. And logic dictates that the cause of nature itself must not only be supernatural, must not only be timeless, but must be uncaused. For it's logically impossible to cause something to come into existence that's timeless. It's either always there or never there. And so, with the origin of nature, we logically can show that it has to be a supernatural entity that's eternal, timeless, and uncaused, which happens to correspond to humanity's general notion of God that are commonly held throughout civilizations, throughout history. It's what we see, that there's actually scientific and logical evidence, and in fact a logical argument for the existence of God, at least a general sort of God as creator of the universe, timeless, eternal, and uncaused. Now, what is this God like? That is another question.